YouTube. So I recently put out a video about a good price on the Congo 2015 elephant, and I picked up 5, and obviously I had one which I picked up earlier in the year. See if we can get the zoom in. And the new coin is coming out soon, and obviously I just showed these because I picked up another 5 which came today, and yeah, so just to show that I'm not just showing another 5, the same 5 again. So this time they didn't come with one on the back, but I've got one on the back, so I don't mind, because at some point I will be flipping them in the long term, and these coins I think meet my strategy for this year, really, due to obviously a few things that I will try and explain about my strategy a little in this video of how my stack helps itself grow over the short term and hopefully the long term. I think these coins in particular, the new design is coming out, and it looks like a well-known depiction of of a gorilla that a lot of people may have seen from gorilla tape or gorilla phone covers, that sort of thing. The frontal, when you actually see the coin, you will know probably what I mean. And the reason why I am interested in these, obviously 11 of these, and I'm going to continue picking up a few more of these that I can before the price kind of, or the stockists that I get them from run out, and then the new coins come out, and these have a mintage of 50,000, and the new 2016 coming out has a mintage of 75,000, and being in the UK, obviously there's a VAT on silver, which is 20%, and if you buy these sort of coins from Germany, which are legal tender, which obviously we'd have to look at the back one to see that. Is it 5,000 francs? So it has a legal tender, and it's minted by the authority or by a state mint, and there's a loophole in Germany where those sort of coins only have, say, 7% tax, so a 13% saving, which means that in my stack of bullion you won't find any rounds, any bars, because they're just not cost effective. I can pick semi-numismatic coins up, like the 2016 that I picked up. The 2016, I've got one in here because it's just, I've got a set of the 2016 kookaburra, which off the top of my head I can't remember, but it was probably about 14 or 15 pound at the time when I bought it earlier in the year, as opposed to a round or a bar which may cost the same or more. so it seems silly not to buy legal tender coins. Also, the other thing is, you won't really see any Libertads or those sort of things in bulk, or American Eagles or anything where the design doesn't change every year and has limited mintage. So my bullion strategy is of that. Semi-numismatics that have limited mintage, and trying to get in at the start of a series, which obviously the kookaburras I've missed, and there are some interesting things with when you look at mintages and the different years and certain things, and the kooks. It's quite interesting that in 1990 the 1 ounces sold out, but up until 2002 the 1 ounces, although they were 300,000 limited mintage, sold under 100,000. It was not until 2008 they started selling again the full quota, the 300,000, and then they obviously put them up. So what I have here is I have the 1 ounce 2008 kookaburra, a lovely coin which sold out. So 300,000, was it 300,000? I could be wrong, but yeah, I think it was, they sold out the 300,000. But the 2 ounce, which they don't make anymore, the 2 ounces, which is such a shame because I really do like 2 ounces. And yeah, these were unlimited mintage, and you notice a lot of the mintages are very, very low on these 2008s. I think this one, the 2008 kookaburra, was 20,083 in the 2 ounces actual sales with unlimited mintage. So sometimes it doesn't actually matter so much about the unlimited mintage. What really matters is the sales, and you know, obviously the design changing every year, and obviously some years were quite low mintage on those, and a lunar mouse has sold for a half ounce for like over $1,000 like a month or so ago, and it seems ridiculous, but when you look at the actual mintages and how low they were back then, you can see why. So back to the Congo gorillas. So at 50,000 mintage, if the mintages continue to grow, like for instance the Somali elephants, which I don't have any of the earlier ones. So this is obviously this year's 2016. Lovely coins, and I really do like the design of these coins. But when these started coming out in 2004, they were very low mintage. So 2013, they were very low mintages, only 5,000 from 2004 till 2008, and then they kind of went a bit crazy. They went up, and I think 2012 was like 80,000, and then 2011 was 170,000, and 2013 was back down to 130,000. So I bought a few of these 2013s a while ago, which I did a video on, because obviously, you know, of the lower mintages. But some of the early ones are fetching quite a premium, because obviously only 5,000, which means, you know, obviously these ones are 50,000, so, you know, might not be as scarce, but I still think probably a good buy, because you know, of that lower mintage, and as I said, the 2016 has gone up, and I think these may be one of the best buys this year. And yeah, so I basically sold some Lunas, and oh, there's another, there it is, 2015 and a 2014. Obviously the design is always the same on the back, the coat of arms, but you know, absolutely stunning coins, these elephants, and they do rather well. But as I said, it changes every year, and the mintages are quite considerably low compared to, you know, the Chinese Panda or the Kookaburra or the Luna series. Maybe quite not as popular, but the popularity is starting to grow. But basically my strategy is to buy some coins, and obviously I had these Lunas. I picked these up and I sold a couple on eBay for probably usually about 20 to 25% profit. And I had some money which eBay had took off me wrongly, that they just paid me back, which was like the price of a panda that I bought. So in all, I had 3 coins, 1 ounces, and I sold those, and I bought myself 5 ounces. So by doing that little trade, my stack has grown 2 ounces. So that's basically what I do. I don't buy everything. Obviously these gorillas, I'll probably hold on to these for, you know, maybe 5 years, or, you know, longer, or maybe shorter. You know, they're more of a long-term play. But items can be picked up, I suppose, you know, at good prices, that if you do your research on what things are being sold for on eBay, and you know, if you can buy it at a price that then you can sell it and be competitive, then it's worth buying. And that's the sort of things I look into. Sometimes that may be a proof coin like this, which I really do like, and you know, I get to appreciate it for a little while I have them, and I list it, and if it sells, it sells, and if it doesn't, you know, I'm not that bothered, because, you know, I'm quite happy to keep the coins, but I'm quite happy to also sell them and make a profit. I did buy something else to go with my profit, and yeah, so, you know, the other thing is that, you know, the more an item costs, sometimes the higher a ticket, the more that you know, the less people may want to buy it, and it may take you longer to sell than something like just a 1 ounce, you know. But as I said, these are still semi-numismatic, mintage 188,000, I think, on all of these Lunas. And yeah, so that's part of my strategy, short term, is to buy some things that I think that I can sell for, you know, a 20%, 25% markup, and then any profit from that I sometimes, you know, reinvest in silver, and then on other occasions I buy a bit of gold. So this year I obviously have put a bit of money into my stack, and part of the stack has grown and has enabled me to obviously hold on to a bit more stuff to buy for the long term, which I couldn't really afford to do at the beginning of the year, which is, you know, why I didn't buy too many 2016 kookaburras, because I wasn't in that position. But by flipping a few coins and stuff, I have managed to increase my buying power. And obviously some things I buy to keep, which are my dragon collections, which I will be doing a video soon, because we have the dining room table back of my dragon collection. But this is the Year of the Dragon, Fiji, and it's $10, which you know, seems kind of, when you consider the turtle coins, I think, are kind of $2, and they're all 1 ounce, but this is obviously a proof version. But yeah, $10, and I really do like this dragon design with the double dragon and the pearl. Is a stunning coin, and so, you know, these are the things that I keep, the dragons as well, and amongst other coins. And one day I don't have to sell these ones until, you know, I decide. But obviously flipping and buying other things that I know that I can sell on at a good price, like the lunar horses, the UK ones, the proofs that I was selling. Yeah, so that's a bit about the strategy. The other thing was about silver and gold. Yeah, and I noticed today that you know, what's been happening with Brexit and all this stuff. When the market went up, you know, I was watching the market and saw it go up, you know, £150 UK pounds in, you know, a few hours. And the interesting thing about that was the pound went down a bit, but the dollar didn't move. Usually when gold and silver goes up, the dollar goes down. Something interesting happened today. Sorry, I'm just rattling me a bit of paper just to move it. Was that I noticed that silver and gold in pounds terms went down today, sort of about £45 that I noticed. But at the same time, it only went down $22. That was gold. And I think, you know, the silver was about the same. It went down 45p and down 22 cents. Well, that doesn't kind of equate right, because obviously, you know, £45 is like, you know, roughly doing the transaction, you know, roughly about $60 or $65, something like that. So it seems that, you know, where it came down more in pounds value, it hasn't come down in much. And I'm starting to think that the Brexit is kind of like just a cover for the global kind of collapse, or how the economy is they keep saying, oh, it's doing fine and all this stuff and great, but since 2008, all the indicators from, you know, people who analyse these for sort of things state that there's been no improvement. In fact, things are a lot worse than 2008, you know. And if you believe that they do manipulate the markets and with what's going on around the world and different things, then, you know, I still think silver and gold are underpriced. But, you know, it could go down, it could go up. They control what happens with the money, the economy. They control everything, you know. And the only thing that I do know, and I can say, is that gold and silver will always rise the same with inflation. So over a period of time, silver and gold will go up at the same rate that, you know, kind of houses go up. Over a period of time, the value always goes up. It may go up and down, but over a period of time, it generally goes up. And that's because, you know, inflation, what you could buy with, say, £20 or £100 10 years ago, you can't buy that now. And in 10 years' time, you'll be able to buy less and less with the same amount of money. But the silver and gold, you will still be able to buy, if you could, you know, say this 2 ounce filled up your tank of petrol 10 years ago. Today, this 2 ounce will still fill up your tank of petrol. And that is the guarantee with silver and gold. The rest is speculation. You know, is the market going to go to the moon? Is it going to do this? Is it going to do that? You know, I mean, I'm big into, not into conspiracy theories, but understanding that, you know, the world we live in is kind of a system, and any monetary system probably lasts, you know, on average 40 years. And so I think we're overdue a change in the monetary system. And was the incident with Brexit just kind of like overnight inflation globally, where they've been suppressing the markets, and then the moment that the second result came in from one of the early panels and it was leave, suddenly the market went crazy when it wasn't certain that it would be leave or, you know, that is the northeast. They do have that sort of view, a Euro-skeptical view, and working class people. So they may vote that way, but suddenly it started to rocket. And I think it was already planned like that, to cover up or to start off the next stage of the you know, global kind of crises, or, you know, where they have been, as I said, suppressing the market, pumping money, quantitative easing and suppressing the price of silver, because if gold and silver start going up, then, you know, and as always, they need some sort of event or something to happen to blame it on, to say, oh, this is why, so they don't get blamed. The central bankers, the people behind the governments. The governments don't really run things. They get told what to do. Who do they owe the money to? When the country's in trillions of debt, or America's in debt, who do they owe that money to? And whoever you owe money to, then you're owned by them, you know. So it's kind of interesting. So my suggestion would be to maybe continue buying, but maybe not buy as much as you would. But I mean, each to their own. I will continue buying. You know, it may just mean that if the price does drop and you bought something at a certain price, then you may have to hold on to that semi-numismatic for a little bit longer before you can sell it. But as I said, being in the UK, I only deal with semi-numismatics, and on a whole, I do like other coins and, you know, collect them, but to make money to make any money, semi-numismatics are the only way to go, because, you know, once you've got 20% VAT on the silver and stuff, if you buy rounds or whatever, you know, silver has to rise for you to make any money. Where these semi-numismatic coins, you know, once these 2015 sell out, the 50,000, and the new coin comes out, I predict that they'll go up in price, probably to, you know, I've already seen them sale now for, you know, 24, 25, 27 pound each, or if you buy 5, you probably get them for 25 pound each. You know, obviously I paid with the postage £20, 25 each for these, so I think that's a pretty good price. But I can see them, when the other ones come out, going up to say £30, and then maybe next year, the year after, 35, and then 40, and then 45, and then 50, and then who knows, depends obviously, if the mintages continue to increase, then all will be good. So these are probably my, as I said, my hot buy for this year, and yeah, so I will be getting some more. So if you've got any questions or comments, or, you know, because I always like to have a discussion and talk to people about different things and exchange my views, and I'm not saying any of my views are right, they're just my opinion. You know, I do listen to a lot of geopolitical news and alternative news, and try to keep myself informed about what's going on with the world and the EU, and, you know, and times are changing, things are changing in our world. You know, our freedoms are trying to be taken away, they're being eroded by an elitist class, the political correct brigade, and if you say anything or you speak out, you get shot down or ridiculed. Or if you live up north like I do, but I've lived in London, I've lived in Wales, you know, I was born in the northeast of England, I now live in the Midlands, but apparently, because I voted Leave, I must be a racist or a bigot. Well, that's further from the truth. I'm no racist, I'm no bigot, I'm just a normal person trying to do what I think's right for this country. To me, has nothing to do with race, immigration, all these things. They never tell you. What it's about is about being run by some other country, some other entity telling your country what to do without having a say in it, without being able to vote out that government or complain, you know. So it's a very bizarre situation that we have in the world, and obviously silver and gold comes back into it. They don't tell you, they say you must save money, you must save money for your pension, for your whatever. Yeah, you start saving when you're young and put your money away in a pension, right? And when that pension comes and you retire, it'll be a pittance. It won't be worth what you put in. Yeah, if you're rich and you're whatever, it may be. But if you're a working person, you know, you put away, saved £50,000, but in 40, 50 years, that £50,000 isn't worth it. If you put it into the precious metal, that £50,000 would still buy you £50,000 worth of stuff that you could buy then maybe £250,000. Who knows? But they don't tell you this stuff. Why don't they tell you this stuff? Because they want to take your money. They want your money to depreciate. They want to exploit you and basically build up. The whole system is built up on debt. And whenever they create a loan or money, they never create the interest that has to be paid back. So default is built into the system. So if they lend £10,000 to you, you have to pay £11,000 back. They only create 10,000 into the system. So obviously there's not enough money in the system to repay back the loan and the interest. So people have to default, and that's built into the system. That's their mechanism, and this is how it works. So anyhow, rambling on again, and a really long video, but you know, I think it is a hot topic right now, and you know, I have my reservations about the summer and what's going on in the Middle East, and all these different countries and stuff, and you know, like what's come out now about the Iraq war and the Chilcot report is that we'll be with you no matter what. There's no weapons of mass destruction. We all knew this back then, but things have moved on. The real thing is protect the petrodollar. At all costs, protect the dollar. The plunge protection team, protect the dollar. Print more money and pump down the price of gold and silver, or this, or pump up this, or whatever. But at the end of the day, the Middle East thing is not about what they say it is. It's about one simple thing: control. And Iraq and Iran recently came out and said they wanted to sell oil to Europe in euros. They can't allow that to happen. Syria, why do they want to get rid of Assad? Oh, because they want to join together with those other countries that I've mentioned: Yemen, Syria, Libya, Iraq, Iran. Yeah, all want to sell petrol or crude oil, not in dollars, but in whichever currency they choose to sell it in. And that would be the end for the petrodollar. But obviously, one country can't really just go it alone. They can only do it as a group, like the BRIC nations. They're also being attacked by, basically, you know, it's like a group of countries. I think Venezuela's part of the BRIC nations, like China and Russia set it up. And, you know, it is troubling times, but you know, it's always portrayed that Russia and China, they're the bad guys, the communists, the whatever, you know. And there's just so much going on right now that, you know, it's only going one way. And people have to start waking up to the fact that, you know, the governments don't work for the people. They're there as a mechanism to exploit the people, to look after the central bankers, and like Europe, to the big corporations, and they're not really interested in the people. They'll dangle carrots. So you think, oh yeah, this is really good, until they erode all the control away from your governments and they control everything, and then you'll see what will happen. Yeah, they won't be so nice then. And that's the problem. You know, that no one wants to be controlled by, you know, someone somewhere else. It would be like in America if, you know, they were suddenly kind of like joined up and then you were being controlled, told what to do by Canada. It just wouldn't happen, would it? You know, but, you know, these people here, they're kind of the Remainers and stuff have all been saying, "Oh, we want another referendum, we want this," and like they're undemocratic people, and they call basically everyone names and stuff, or you're this, you're that, and they're the ones that put people into categories or kind of try to divide, cause divisions between, like Muslims or Christians or different races or colours or, kind of your sexuality, and everyone's put into a group or a label given to them, like, because, that's it. They can play people off against each other and cause divisions, because when you cause divisions, people aren't united, they're easy to control. When people stick together and have a voice, then they're very hard to control, and they don't want that. So that's another mechanism that they use in everyday thing of division. And, the more you go through education, the more you seem to be kind of like a new word that I have, a blockhead, where, all you do or you see is what they tell you, and you accept that, oh, that must be true then. If they say that, that must be true. When every word probably is a lie. It's the opposite. Whatever they say, oh, it's going to be, the economy's great, is whatever, there's loads of jobs, and there's no jobs. There's unemployment all over the world, youth unemployment. The elites are getting, like, the gap's getting wider, and the poor are getting poorer. And these people seem to even think that the people who voted Leave obviously haven't got the brain power to have a vote. Because clearly not. Because the vote didn't go their way, so, the other people aren't entitled to a vote. That Parliament should decide and go against them, because clearly, we need to be told what to do. And we don't want to be told what to do. That's the problem. And anyone who says otherwise, they want to be told what to do, then that's fine. You go somewhere, you do that. It's not about colour. It's not about whatever. I have so many friends from different nations, different backgrounds, and they're all nice people who have the same ethic in life. But no one wants to be controlled by and told what to do by people who, have no clue about, your country, your sovereignty, your idealism, or your views, or, your parents fought in the war and stuff like that. That might sound like trivial things, but, there was a war, there was a thing, and if you look into it, sometimes the only people really who profit from the EU is Germany. As I said earlier, they're the only ones who have the legal loophole to sell this. When you look at manufacturing and all sorts of things, all the other Euro countries, they're all down. They're all demising, where Germany is the only ones growing stronger. Who profits from Greece being in trouble, or Italy, or all those countries? Germany profits. It's a well-known fact now that the Bilderbergs came out with the concept of the European Economic Community to, bring people together. But their ulterior plan wasn't that. It was a political union to gain control. But all these countries wouldn't agree to this in the beginning if they told them you need a political union. Oh no, they do it slowly, And slowly things have changed. Over 50% of our laws in the UK are handed down from Europe, which the European MPs are there just to ratify what the Commission puts forward, that they've been lobbied by big multinational companies which have buildings around the EU, and there's a constant lobbying and stuff. And yeah, it sounds a bit like the United States of America. But the thing about the United States of America is you all have the same cultures, the same identity. Yes, it might be different states and a different thing, but Europe is a lot different. And I love Europe. I love France. I love the Netherlands. I love Germany, even going to Germany, German people. But it's the system that doesn't work for the people, and you see people in France, people all over, in Italy, struggling. You've got all the migrant crisis, which I think is artificially done as well to cause instability in Europe, which then will lead them to say, well, we need a European army or a European police force. We need more things so they can get more towards the one system, one control. And then afterwards it may be the one world order. That's I can't really talk about that. That's a thing, but it's something that I believe that, well, this is the only thing. They have banding about it being, global currency, and obviously that being a cashless society. Now, that is obviously, your worst scenario, because if you are against the state or against their views or whatever, they could quite easily cut you off from buying food, travelling, doing anything that they don't want you to do, restricting you. In California, I hear things about Agenda 21 and stuff, and how they basically, it's a bit the same here in the UK. They kind of have a plan to kind of get rid of cars off their roads, an underhand, sort of in secret sort of thing. But the way they do that is by taxing people in cars excessively to pay for the infrastructure, to then make it so expensive that then they can't afford to drive their cars no more, and take away your freedom, because then you have to rely on them. That's what they want. You're not allowed to, in America, you're not allowed to, you've got to be hooked up to the electric grid, or because it's a federal offence, or the water because it's a federal offence. You can't be off the grid sort of thing. And, there was a couple growing vegetables in their front yard, and apparently that's against the law, growing your own food. How far is, I understand I don't live in America, but I thought it was meant to be the land of the free to whatever. But obviously, yes, no one's free because they tell you are. That's the ruse. Oh, you're free, but you just got to accept these rules, accept this, accept that. Oh, more rules. And eventually, that's it, So, who knows what will happen in the future. As I said, this is just my view, kind of a bit of, things that I've picked up that I think, oh, well, I may have left a lot of stuff out, because it is a huge subject. Once you start looking at one aspect somewhere around the world globally, and getting into precious metals and stuff, it makes you more aware of these scenarios and these things that are going on. And that, years ago, I didn't really take much notice. I was one of those people, I was sort of brainwashed and conditioned in a sort of way. But suddenly, I think it was the Iraq War and stuff made me think something's not going on here. And then they go to Afghanistan. Something's not going on here, and it just kept going. And the 9/11 and different things, and false flags and all these different things that start to happen. And when you think about it, it is kind of crazy, but like a James Bond movie there's always someone looking to take over the world. Some crazy people behind the shadows that no one knows who they are. And, this is their new mechanism, as I said. And, I don't know what's going to happen in the Middle East, but, some people believe that, the ISIS or the terrorists are a proxy army there to cause instability, and the people drive and cause more instability, and they want regime change because they've got to put in their people, their puppets, to control, obviously, the petrodollar and their system. But inevitably, the system is going to crash, because no system lasts forever. No monetary system can last forever because, of inflation. Eventually, you won't be able to buy anything with your money. However long that will take, I couldn't tell you. But eventually, you won't be able to buy anything with money, and they'll have to change the system. They'll have to do something differently. And there are other things going on in Russia and China with the yen, and they bought a lot of gold, and people think that they're going to start up their own system based on gold, which could be the end for their system. But, there'll be a war before that happens. They won't go out without pressing the button, in a sense. Like David Cameron said a few months ago now, I'll press the button if I had to. And, apparently we're sending troops to Poland and Estonia, British troops to Poland and Estonia, because of heightened Russian aggression. What heightened Russian aggression? You mean the aggression from the Americans and the British and NATO, gathering around there because of Ukraine and Crimea. And they don't want, basically, Russia to have that port with that access to the Mediterranean there. And that was what it was all about. But, that hasn't worked out. And now you have the situation you have now. They'll try and blame anything on anyone to get their way. And as I said, I wouldn't be surprised if this summer something kicks off somewhere, or they manage to, intimidate North Korea into doing something, because it's the same there. In South Korea, troops are building up on the border with North Korea, and weapons and stuff which are being supplied. But also China have seen what's going on and have started putting troops on the border with North Korea as well. So, it's kind of like they know what's going on. Putin knows what's going on. The same as he knows what happened when they shot down the Russian plane, the Turkish. And he thought, smart guy, I'll just put sanctions on them or stop our people going for a holiday there, and that's how we'll hurt them, because Turkey are basically just a front for, the Americans and NATO and us, the UK. And they're all part of the same agenda. And personally, I think it's like a double-edged or triple-edged sword. And no matter which edge swipes down, they're behind that edge. They play both sides. So no matter which side wins, they win. And they cause the problem. And then they offer the solution to the problem. Like what's going on now with all the people flooding into Europe and the troubles in, different things around the world. And they basically cause the trouble. And then they'll come up and offer a solution. So, I don't know. It's one of these things. It's kind of like mind-blowingly thing, and it is a bit turned into a bit of a rant. But yeah, it is kind of one of those subjects that really, like, you know, if you've not really thought about it and you really like want to know more about it, there's a good guy does stuff. I think it's the X22 report, geopolitical news and stuff. Well worth a listen of what's going on and what has and different things, and he's very knowledgeable and factual. And you know, obviously there are other people out there with more radical views. He doesn't really have a radical view. He is kind of like a stacker, prepper sort of guy, because at the end of his things he's always saying about, are you prepared, for what's coming and stuff, whenever that may be. But something will be coming. I do believe that, because, it's only a certain time that we're all on this planet, and the elitist families and everything hand down this to their next in succession. The same thing as we do with our children, hand them our house and whatever. So it's the same thing kind of goes on generation after generation, and the plan carries on, and as I said, these people think from the shadows. Some, we know kind of who they are, like the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, probably the Queen or the royal family in this country, because the new Prime Minister, the old Cameron will have to go tomorrow and say, I'm no longer the Prime Minister. And then the new one will go there and say, oh, I'm the Prime Minister now, to the Queen. But can you really imagine them having all that power for all those years and then suddenly giving it up if they didn't have some other mechanism to kind of like control? But it was like not with the stick or the sword, it was just with a carrot, or with democracy. Yes, we have democracy, but that's a con and a charade in itself, because we don't have true democracy. The only thing that was true democracy was the vote on this referendum for Brexit. But any other vote is not democracy, because the people you're voting for aren't what they say they are. And they're put there. They kind of, you don't just stroll into that position, You can't just become Prime Minister without, them saying, oh, or even being in that party or being an MP without them saying, oh, you can be an MP or whatever. It just doesn't happen. The same thing in America. I mean, seriously, Trump or Clinton? Neither. Neither of them. But that's what they've given you. And some people think it's just like kind of a show that is already been decided. So is there real democracy out there? Because really, going back to the Brexit, there's never been the other question. The question was, should we leave or should we remain? Now, the funny thing is that the UK is not fully in Europe anyway. We don't have the same currency, the euro. We control our own border, kind of, and all the other European countries, you can virtually travel around them, not have to show your passport or whatever. But in the UK, we're not really totally in Europe. So they should have had another question. Should we be totally in Europe or not? And maybe that would have been a different answer. But for me, it's always going to be, I don't want a European state, regardless of anything else. So that's my view. But yeah, there was one more thing, but it's just slipped my memory. And yeah, it was basically like about democracy and about how, they put the choices to you to decide, but don't really give you the choices that you would want. And goes back to, like, we had a vote in the UK a while ago about whether we should change the voting system in this country. And a lot of people, especially what happened in the last election, it was basically, should we keep it as it is now, or should we have an alternative vote, which means that you vote for like two people on the voting thing, and then if one person sort of gets knocked out when they count it, then they count the second votes for that, for the other people in. So it's like kind of not a very good system compared to the system we have anyway, which is like first past the post. Yeah. So, but a lot of people have been saying that, and I said at the time, why have we not got an option for proportional representation as a system? But that wasn't offered, because that's the only fair representation of the people can get. And no other real parties can get a stranglehold under this systems that we have, either alternative vote if it had been changed, or the system we have now, first past the post. Because what happened in the last election was UKIP, United Kingdom Independence Party, that has always campaigned for leaving the EU, with some things I don't agree with, but obviously I do agree with leaving the EU. And obviously the Conservatives were scared of that, and that's why we have the referendum, because they were scared they were going to lose those votes for that. But what happened in the election was, I think UKIP got about 5 million votes or something like that, but got one seat in Parliament. And the SNP in total got about 1.5 million votes and got about 10 seats in Parliament, say. And there was outrage in this country with the people who voted UKIP, that so many people had actually voted for that one party but had no representation in the Houses of Parliament. And Michael Farage, who was the leader of UKIP, isn't a member of Parliament. And, subsequently, with the Brexit, you get these people saying there should be, it should be down to the Leave campaigners to set out a plan. But how can they when they're not in government, when they have no say in government? So, I think the big mistake, and probably the one that makes me think the most about it, is that the government didn't have a plan for the eventuality of Leave, which is kind of strange that you wouldn't have a plan, even if you thought, you'd have a plan. If you were in a business and it was this or what, you've got a plan. Everyone's got a plan, but they didn't have a plan. Because, having a plan would mean, well, there was stability there. The whole thing was created to cause instability, and the aftermath of what's happened with both parties like in turmoil and stuff may lead to another general election, which maybe they will campaign on staying or leaving the EU again, and this country may not leave the EU. It is a conundrum, or whatever you call it. There have been someone in the House of Lords, I think it was Lord Lawson, was saying that, if they do that and go against like the will of the people, that there will be trouble in this country. It may break out, because people aren't happy. And, you know, if kind of like democracy doesn't work, then something needs to be done. And as I said, the whole system, democracy, isn't democracy, you know. And if you believe it is democracy, then I don't know, maybe my view's biased or something, or I'm missing something. But seriously, whoever gets in, they promise this, but they deliver something totally different, and it's always a notch worse, a notch worse, a notch worse. And yeah, we as small little people can't do anything, but if we unite, a united voice can do something. That's what I believe in. You know, power of the people.